Their work, in close collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, has brought us to this moment today. I want to thank the District Attorney and his team, as always, for their partnership. This case demanded coordination, persistence, and a shared commitment to justice. Also, thank you to our media partners for showing up today and for sharing this important message with the public. And finally, to Ms. Rivas' family, we cannot undo the pain you are feeling. Our hope is that today brings some measure of accountability and a step in the journey toward healing. Please know that the Los Angeles Police Department remains fully committed to seeking justice on behalf of your daughter. Thank you.
So at this point, we'll take questions.
Anything more you can tell us about the fact that you were witness to the investigation, that you pointed your views, who were being identified?
The details of the allegations that have made, particularly with that special circumstance, will be produced in court.
Did you determine the death and the difficulty was in terms of the matter caused the
So with respect to the coroner's report, we will be seeking quite quickly to provide an order to the court that now allows the coroner to release that report to the public.
So from BBC, between the finding of the body of Celeste's body or her remains, why is it taking so long for an arrest to be made?
I think the police chief got it right. That in a situation where you don't have an eyewitness account, or we can't point to a video that shows the killer killing someone, you have to go through the very rigorous and thorough investigation to look at all the digital and forensic evidence. You have to speak with witnesses, often who are cooperative, and some who are not cooperative, in order to obtain all the information necessary to decide who did what, when, how, and what their mental state was at the time. That is what we've been doing over the last between September 8th, roughly, and today when we bring these charges on April 20th. So again, it's a type of case that you want to make sure you get maximum information. And by the way, if there's anyone out there that has material information about this particular murder or any other actions taken by Mr. Burke, please come forward to the Los Angeles Police Department, come forward to the LA County DA's office, and report that information.
Yeah, I agree with whoever was just saying in the chat. Somebody said in the kick chat, like, yo, that one friend, like, there was one friend was like, yo, listen, I'm not about to keep taking up for niggas. You can tell, somebody's definitely telling, but I think what this DA's trying to let us know is that no one saw. Like, I think homie might have been, you know, I've always said this, even when I was doing the War in Iraq, and I had a channel called Crime Fails. Niggas wouldn't have to worry about snitching if they did the crime themselves. If you want to do crime, don't tell your mama where you going, don't tell your bitch where you going, don't tell your homie where you going, don't bring them with you. The best way to not get snitched on is if nobody else was there. And it looks like it caused the DA some problems because nobody knows. There was no other eyewitness. Not like somebody's like, nah, yeah, I watched when she walked in the room. I ain't never see her walk out. Like, nobody, it seems, at least now, seems that no one has the info on exactly when the murder or even witnessing when it happened. So he must have killed her. You know, I still think people were involved in the cover-up, but clearly he, definitely clearly, according to this guy, there was no like eyewitnesses, which now makes me think, the car was moved from the house. It was parked a couple blocks away. Then it was double parked. I'm wondering if he was keeping her body away from his own team. Where, like, people would come over to the house sometimes frequently. Maybe he had her in the fridge at first, and then, he realized that, damn, they're kind of like, there's too many people coming to the house. He takes her out of the fridge, he puts her in the car, and he just parks the car like a couple blocks away. That people at the house can't, I don't know. Like, we're gonna find out more clearly.
We're aware of this relationship. Is it possible that you will be arresting other people within his circle, and did he act alone in this death?
Again, with respect to whether or not there's any other individuals or we're going to take any other actions, you will know about them if we do, but at this point I'm not commenting.
Do you believe that you know how she was killed beyond it being homicide? The actual cause of death?
The coroner's report will be released shortly. Because it is not currently released, I'm not going to be commenting.
But was it determined, not that, if you won't say what it was, but has it been determined how she was killed beyond it being homicide?
The coroner has made a determination on how Celeste died, and at the point that the coroner's report becomes public, we'll be able to comment.
Was there specific breakthrough last week? Is there physical evidence that ties David to this murder?
There is physical evidence and there is forensic and digital evidence that we intend to present in court to prove these charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes.
Your investigation, and just for this question, are you able to tell us exactly what the smoking gun is, and also if you can address the issue of his visit to Santa Barbara, and that how does it connect to the murder?
So with respect to the actual details of the evidence we're going to be presenting in court, I'm not going to do that today. As far as the concept of a smoking gun, the smoking gun is the totality of the evidence that we're going to prove any case, whether it's this case or any case, beyond a reasonable doubt. An investigation is ongoing. If information comes forward on with respect to any additional crimes, we will certainly investigate it. Yes.
One more discussion about the difficult things you talked about as well. What makes you confident you can prove the result?
What makes us confident is the totality of the evidence that has been obtained by the LAPD robbery homicide, by the work that the District Attorney's Office has done, that has led us to the point where we believe we can prove each and every one of these three charges and the special circumstances and the special allegation beyond a reasonable doubt.
Thank you, everybody. If you raise your hand if you have Spanish language and you need a Spanish language translation. Okay, keep your hands up. My team will come around you and we will have somebody have you.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay. TMZ, who has been having a lot of exclusive sources about what they have heard, they did say I believe on Thursday or Friday, they said that the DA were kind of getting pushed along by the cops to file charges. Clearly, charges came down today. And Harvey Levin, by the way, their whole operation is in LA. So this is kind of like in their backyard. So I'm more inclined to pull up what Harvey's saying. But he does have some updates on what else is going on. Check it out.
Now formally charged singer David with the murder of Celeste Rivas and is alleging special circumstances. Now, a lot of the information is still vague. The DA would not get into specifics. But based on the special circumstances, I think this is a window in to what the DA is alleging. The DA is saying that the special circumstances were lying in wait and financial gain. Now, he is also being charged with having sex with a minor under the age of 14 and mutilation of a body. The sex with a minor under the age of 13 is significant. It seems like what the DA is saying. Now, he said that the financial gain is she was a witness to something, and if it got out, it would ruin his career. And killing her was a way of preventing that. So when you kind of connect the dots and put the pieces together, it seems what the DA is alleging is that Celeste was a witness to the fact that she was having sex with David.
Yeah,
in other words, she's not just a witness, she is involved. And that she had percipient knowledge, as we say, of the circumstances, that he was having sex with an underage girl. So what you would surmise is that when you look at the lying in wait charge, what you would surmise is the DA seems to be suggesting that in some way Celeste threatened to make their sexual relationship public or go to the police. Maybe they were having some kind of a dispute. That's what it seems the DA is suggesting.
That seems,
and
yes.
that the lying in wait is luring her over to his place and killing her so that she couldn't blow the whistle on him. Now, he didn't say that, but when you try to connect the dots of lying in wait and financial gain, for possibly ruining his career, that seems to be where it's heading. Now, when he is charged with special circumstances, that means the death penalty is on the table. It doesn't mean that that the DA will seek the death penalty, but it...
Okay. So he's kind of saying the same thing. All right. Essentially, he was in court. Let's see if we can find. They dragged him to court today. It's like an arraignment of sorts. I'll show you guys that. And I believe he was denied bail. I mean, if you have charges that carry potentially death, they usually don't give you a bond. All right, get that as ad. Oh my God. Yeah, I think homie might be cooked.
Calling People versus David Anthony Burke. That's case number 26 CJC F02399.
Good morning or good afternoon, Your Honor. Blair Burke, Marilyn Dunlowski, and Regina Peter, on behalf of my client, David Burke, who's in custody.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Burke.
Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, to people, Your Honor.
Thank you. And counsel, on behalf of your client, do you waive formal reading of the complaint, advisement of rights, including armed forces and veterans' rights, and her plea of not guilty, denying any and all special allegations, enhancements, and priors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And requesting a preliminary hearing within the period?
Yes, Your Honor. From the media reports, apparently there have been 4 months of secret grand jury proceedings. We believe that Mr. Burke is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing, and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date on the 10th day. Your Honor.
Okay, now that's important. So what's been happening is that, so there's 2 ways of how charges kind of like, especially felonious charges, go about in the United States, is that you get indicted by what's called a grand jury. It's usually a secret process that will involve usually an odd amount of jurors, which is usually 13, or it could be like 25 actually, 13 or 25, which, they usually have to come up with a majority vote to say there's probable cause to see if you can go to trial. That would be what's called an indictment. However, there's another way to bring someone to trial, especially on felony charges. You can have a preliminary hearing, and in that particular thing, the difference between a grand jury and a preliminary hearing, your lawyers are going to be arguing in front of a judge, and the prosecutor is going to be arguing in front of a judge. So the judge is going to hear both sides to some extent. In a grand jury, that's why I say a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich, is because a grand jury does not usually does not see the potential defendant, and the defendant's attorneys never ever usually participate in that process usually. And because of that, if you only hear one side of the story, usually you're down to indict, right? That's why it's they say a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich. Because the grand jury has not indicted David, right? Yes, they had a grand jury that was convened for investigatory processes to be able to subpoena people and subpoena records and stuff like that, but they've never come back with an indictment. The lawyers for David are trying to say, hey, we don't want no more secret process. We don't want you to try to flip all his friends and turn them into snitches and have them try to save their own ass if they maybe did something, maybe imposed to hide the body, whatever, and try to just pin it all on him, because that's what would happen in the grand jury. They're like, let's do a preliminary hearing. A$AP Rocky went to a preliminary hearing as well, and the preliminary hearing, you would sit in court and they would argue this, but it gives the defendant a chance to kind of give some explanations, or at least like poke holes in theory or probable cause that a judge could possibly say, nah, you guys don't have enough, right? So we're going to see if that happens. Let's see what the judge actually says about that.
We believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death. And we would like to be able to have the evidence come into the light of day at the earliest opportunity in order to establish that. We're asking for April 23rd as a 3 of 10, Your Honor.
We'll be very happy to put on the evidence that we collected in this case in the last several months.
Thank you. So the matter will be set. Plea of not guilty has been entered on behalf of Mr. Burke. The matter will be set in Department 105. The matter is ordered assigned to Judge Charlene Almeida of Department 105 for all purposes by the judge of the supervising judge of criminal.
Yes, Your Honor. If I may just put on the record, we have, as soon as the people arrive, delivered a informal discovery request consistent with Penal Code Section 1054. We have been given almost no discovery thus far. We received a 3-page follow-up report, no autopsy report, and a copy of the complaint. And we would ask the people respectfully to produce discovery at the earliest opportunity.
Your Honor, as I indicated, counsel, there's approximately 40 terabytes of discovery in this case. Moreover, in order to obtain the transcripts from a grand jury investigation, counsel has to file a motion. She knows the way the system works. I'm not able to gather those. They have to be provided after the court orders them released because it was an investigation. Second of all, the counsel...
That's interesting. So a bunch of the evidence that's going to be used that is subject to being in discovery came from the grand jury. So the grand jury looked like it did help get this investigation kind of like buttoned up. But they're saying we can't give you, the grand jury hasn't came back with anything yet. So they're still in the investigative process. We can't give you anything that was reported by there. The court has to say yes. The court probably is going to say yes because, everybody's entitled to see the information they're going to be prosecuted with.
Going to a preliminary hearing within the 10 days, it is unlikely that there will be very much discovery provided within that period, given the voluminous nature and how long it's going to take to copy onto drives. In addition to that, the coroner's report was sealed in this case in order to prevent it from hampering truthful testimony from witnesses that testified at the grand jury. So an order will also have to be obtained in order to get the coroner's department, which is now the medical examiner's department, to release those materials.
Your Honor, it's surprising news given the District Attorney's Office held a press conference this morning where they discussed the cause of death, apparently under seal and not released by the coroner's office, as did robbery homicide unit to the press. So we would again reiterate, we believe that Mr. Burke is entitled to discovery. We have served...
He just got charged. He's not going to be for a while.
15 days to produce discovery in this case. We would ask that they do that in conscientious earnestness and as quickly as possible.
I ask the court to make an order today. We'll take a copy of the minute order ordering the Department of Medical Examiner to release their coroner's report in this case.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The court will order that the medical examiner release the report in this case.
Thank you.
The matter set in Department 105, as the court indicated, April 23rd, 2026, as a 3 of 10 grand. Anything further?
No, not this time.
Bail to stand, no bail. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so no bail. think homeboy's kind of cooked, man. But we'll see what his lawyers have. You know, in this type of case, they could go about defending him in two different ways. One of the there's an alternate theory, like, hey, based on the information, well, she could have been killed by any amount of people. Why y'all picking on our client? That's number one. The other one could be, hey, listen, unless you got all the information so that really points to David being the killer, we're just not gonna mix anything. Still, you know, he's gonna have to deny the having sex with the child. You know, it's a nasty case. Like, you know, I think we all just kind of come to, you know, terms with that. Even if he ain't killer, like, maybe you're fucking a 14-year-old, you're pretty fucking nasty, right? I think that's about it. I do gotta grab my dog, so I'm gonna play something real quick. I need 3 minutes. 3 minutes break. Gotta play some 3 minutes. I get my dogs, make sure they're all good. Did the Knicks win tonight? Gotta make sure the Knicks put that dub, you know. Oh, yeah, they're up. Yeah, easy one. Okay, give me 1 second. Let's play something real quick.
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Justin Fairfax. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Justin Edward Fairfax was born on February 17, 1979, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When he was 5 years old, his family moved to Washington, D.C. He graduated from high school, then studied public policy at Duke University, earning a bachelor's degree in 2000. In 2002, he attended Columbia Law School. He graduated with a Juris Doctor in 2005. Over the next few years, Justin worked as a law clerk, a federal prosecutor, and with a few different law firms. On June 17, 2006, Justin married a dentist named Serena. The couple went on to have a son and a daughter. The family lived in a 2,000-square-foot house at 8106 Guinevere Drive in Annandale, Virginia. In 2013, Justin ran for state attorney general, but he was defeated in a close race. In 2017, he ran as a Democrat for lieutenant governor of Virginia and was victorious. He worked part-time as lieutenant governor, earning about $36,000 a year. Justin also worked full-time in a law firm. Everything seemed to be working out pretty well for Justin. He was making friends, attracting positive attention, and growing more powerful politically. He was committed to keeping this momentum. One thing was for certain: Justin would not be involved in a career-derailing incident. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On February 3, 2019, the media reported an accusation made against Justin Fairfax by a woman named Vanessa Tyson. Vanessa claimed that Justin had conducted a sexual assault against her on July 28, 2004, when they were in Boston, Massachusetts, at a Democratic National Convention. The alleged assault took place in Justin's hotel room. According to Vanessa, her encounter with Justin was consensual at first. They were just kissing. After that, Justin forced her to perform oral sex on him. Vanessa claimed that she had suppressed her memories of the incident, but those memories surfaced when she saw an article in October 2017 about Justin's campaign for lieutenant governor. She went to the Washington Post in November of that year. They were unable to corroborate her account. They decided not to run the story. Justin denied the allegation. He admitted to having sex with Vanessa, but said it was consensual. As far as why Vanessa came forward, Justin suggested that her motive was political. There was a recent event that he cited to support his theory. The governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, had been involved in a scandal of his own starting on February 1, 2019. A racist photograph of Ralph from 1984 was discovered in a school yearbook. Many people thought that Ralph would resign, which meant that Justin would become the governor of Virginia. In response to Justin's suggestion that her accusation was political, Vanessa said that she was a Democrat and had no political agenda. As the scandal was unfolding, Justin allegedly used obscene language to describe Vanessa in a private staff meeting. The chief of staff for Justin said there was profanity, but it had nothing to do with Vanessa. On February 8, 2019, a second accuser came forward. A woman named Meredith Watson claimed that Justin committed a sexual assault against her in the spring of 2000 when they were both students at Duke University. The alleged attack, which she called premeditated and aggressive, occurred in a fraternity house on campus. A friend of hers remembered that Meredith mentioned the alleged assault one day after it occurred. Meredith claimed that after the alleged assault, she encountered Justin outside a campus party. She asked him, "Why did you do it?" Justin allegedly responded, quote, "I knew that because of what happened to you last year, you would be too afraid to say anything," unquote. Presumably, he was referring to an alleged assault conducted by a basketball player against Meredith 1 year earlier. Justin had maintained a decent level of support after the first allegation, but this second allegation led to significant pressure to resign. He denied the claim by Meredith, saying that he would clear his good name and he had nothing to hide. He added, quote, "It is obvious that a vicious and coordinated smear campaign is being orchestrated against me. I will not resign," unquote. Justin was placed on leave from the law firm, and 4 of his staff members resigned. Despite all the outrage and the pressure, he remained in the position of lieutenant governor. In 2021, he ran as a Democrat for governor of Virginia. Not surprisingly, Justin was brutally defeated in the primary. His political career was over. Furthermore, it was unlikely that he would ever get another job at a prestigious law firm. Justin ran into some financial problems. It appears as though he never recovered from the allegations and the resulting losses. Unfortunately for Justin, there was more bad news on the way. In July 2025, his wife Serena filed for divorce. She claimed that he did not pay his share of the children's private school tuition, the mortgage, and household expenses. Justin claimed that his wife filed a divorce complaint in bad faith. She had not demonstrated an intent to permanently separate because they still lived together. As the divorce proceedings continued, Serena accused Justin of drinking alcohol on a daily basis. The area of the house where he stayed was littered with empty wine bottles and dirty laundry. She indicated that in 2022, he took money that was set aside for horseback riding lessons for their children and purchased a handgun. In January 2026, Justin called the police and said that his wife had physically assaulted him. By this point, Serena had installed multiple security cameras inside the family house, presumably because she did not trust her husband Justin. The video captured by those cameras contradicted Justin's allegations. The police determined that no assault occurred. Despite his false accusation against Serena, Justin was never charged for filing a false report. His false claim, however, was used against him in the divorce proceedings. The judge ordered Justin to move out of the family house on Guinevere Drive by April 30, 2026. As it turns out, Justin never moved out. He decided to take a much different approach. On Thursday, April 16, 2026, just after midnight, one of Justin's children called 911 and requested assistance at the house. When the police arrived, they discovered that 47-year-old Justin Fairfax and his 49-year-old wife Serena Fairfax were dead. Interior video surveillance cameras revealed what happened. Justin had shot his wife Serena multiple times in the basement. He then went upstairs to the master bedroom and brought an end to his own life, using the same firearm. At the time I'm making this video, investigators were trying to determine the motive for the murder. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. One of Justin's friends told the media that Justin never moved past the scandal from February 2019. He was depressed, in darkness, trying to deal with everything he lost, and had a feeling that there was no hope. A few of his friends encouraged him to get help. Presumably, Justin never did. One of his last statements to this friend was, quote, "I need somebody to help me prove my innocence. I can't get my life back until somebody stands up for me," unquote. Item number 2. In the time leading up to the fatal shooting, Justin's behavior became increasingly erratic, and his alcohol consumption was out of control. He was drinking heavily every single day. These changes were noted by the judge who was overseeing the divorce proceedings. The judge wrote that Justin was a talented man who had undefined emotional issues. He added, quote, "Yet there can be no mistake that these undefined issues are in fact defining him and limiting his ability to be the person he is capable of being, including, but not limited to, the role of dad," unquote. The judge believed there were clear and extremely high tensions in the Fairfax family home, and it had been that way for an extended period of time. He wrote that Justin's isolation, drinking, and lack of participation in family life are manifestations of what seems to be a sense of fatalism and hopelessness. A hearing was coming up on April 21, 2026, where Justin and Serena were going to divide their assets. Justin had recently been served legal paperwork related to this hearing. The police believe this could have been the catalyst for the murder. This makes sense considering the shooting took place just 5 days before that hearing. Item number 3. Considering the devastating effect of the allegations on Justin's political career, one would think that they must have been well supported. Like there were several witnesses and substantial documentation that made Justin's guilt clear and undeniable. In reality, there was very little support for the allegations against Justin. No witnesses, no DNA, no video, no documentation, no physical evidence of any type. No report was made to the authorities at the time of the alleged assaults. Vanessa did not mention the alleged assault for 13 years, claiming that she had suppressed her memory. Meredith told a friend about the alleged assault when it happened, but she only came forward publicly after the news broke about Vanessa's claim. According to Justin, Vanessa claimed that she first met him on July 26, 2004, 2 days before the alleged assault. He said that he did not arrive in Boston until July 27. Vanessa claimed that she never contacted Justin after the alleged assault, but Justin said she left him a voicemail. Justin's defense was straightforward. He said everything that happened between him and the women was consensual. When weighing the evidence, it becomes clear the women could not prove their case by the criminal standard beyond a reasonable doubt, and they could not prove it beyond the civil standard, preponderance of the evidence. This case was based on the word of Vanessa and Meredith against the word of Justin. The women had no way to prove their allegations, and Justin had no way to disprove them. This was a stalemate, but somehow it transformed into a defeat for Justin. The reaction was a lot worse than the evidence. During the time when the scandal broke, 2019, there was a fear that voters had very little tolerance for unresolved sexual assault allegations, regardless of the strength or weakness of the case. For many people, an accusation was as good as a conviction. Item number 4. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Before the allegations made by Vanessa and Meredith in February 2019, Justin had everything going for him. He was a successful politician with a bright future. There were many reasons to believe his situation was only going to get better. Some people believed he was destined for the White House. After the allegations, all this optimism dissipated. Justin remained lieutenant governor until his term expired, but he was never elected to political office again. He lost his career and found himself unemployable. He lost his marriage, his children, his sobriety, his sanity, and ultimately his will to live. As I mentioned, the police believe that Justin was triggered by being served legal paperwork for the upcoming hearing. This was probably part of it, but Justin had been losing for a long time. I think he was motivated by despair, depression, and hopelessness. He did not see a way out of his situation. He had no way to prove the allegations against him were untrue. Justin probably believed that if he could prove them untrue, his political career would be gloriously resurrected. In reality, it can be difficult to make a comeback in politics regardless of the reason for the original failure. There was no solution to Justin's problem. His political career had been permanently disassembled. I think the fatal shooting can be explained by the cumulative effect of multiple defeats over 7 years. It appears as though there was a revenge component. Maybe Justin blamed his wife for divorcing him and taking him to court. In his last moment, he was determined to make sure that his misery had company. He was not going to leave his wife behind to enjoy life without him. They would share the same fate. Justin was self-centered, vindictive, and had a sense of entitlement. I find it curious that Justin spent the last 7 years of his life trying to convince people that he was a good person. He claimed that he would never engage in behavior consistent with those allegations. People had misjudged him. People should have given him the benefit of the doubt. In the end, he proved himself to be a killer. He did something worse than the allegations. He went over the top and murdered his wife. Perhaps there was a message embedded in his behavior. He wanted to communicate something to those people who despised him, to those people who failed to support him. Perhaps he was saying, if you're going to repeatedly accuse me of being a bad guy, then with my final act, I will give you a concrete reason to believe it. Those are my thoughts on the case of Justin Fairfax. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. This is Dr. Grande. Today I'll analyze the case of Jason Nichols. First I'll look at the timeline of the alleged crime, then move to my analysis. On Tuesday, April 7, 2026, at 9:03 a.m., a man named Jason Thomas Nichols appeared at the front door of a house on Burbank Court in Fairfield, California. This is 46 miles northeast of San Francisco. There's not a lot of information available about Jason's history at this point. He was born on September 2, 1996, so he was 29 years old. Jason lived on Cologue Drive, which is just a few hundred feet north of Burbank Court. Inside the house on Burbank Court was a pregnant woman and her 5-year-old son. The woman's husband, who I will refer to as John Doe, was away from the house. However, he was able to monitor the Ring doorbell camera remotely. Jason Nichols could be seen standing at the front door of the house, wearing a black trench coat and a Demon Slayer anime t-shirt. John Doe said hello through the Ring doorbell camera. Jason responded, hello, can you open this door, please? John Doe asked, for what? Jason said, I just want to make sure that everything's okay. There seems to be something going on. John Doe asked, what do you mean? Jason said, I don't know. I just figured I'd check on something. John Doe said, I don't know what you want, man. Get out of my house. The response Jason offered to this comment was to kick the front door. He moved backward after kicking, stumbled down 2 steps, and said, open the door. Where's your daughter, man? Where's your daughter, man? Where's your daughter? Who's in there with you? Open this door. I'm breaking it down. Do you understand me? Is everyone in this house okay? John Doe replied, what? Everyone's okay. What do you want? At this point, Jason knocked on the door and awkwardly stared at the doorbell camera for several seconds. John Doe said, can you leave my house, please? Jason said, can you open the door, please? John Doe replied, you have nothing to do with my house. Can you leave my house? Jason asked, do you know what my name is? John Doe replied, I don't know who you are. You don't belong in this neighborhood, that's for sure. Jason said, this is my neighborhood, though. John Doe said, yeah, I live there. I don't know you. Jason said, my name is Harry Dresden, mother blanker. It appears as though Jason was referring to the protagonist in the novel series, The Dresden Files. I will talk more about this in my analysis. Jason continued, open the door. This is my neighborhood. Open the blanking door. After several seconds of staring at the camera, he added, now, or I will blanking end you. Do you understand me? After several more seconds of awkward staring, Jason grabbed the chain of a decorative bell mounted on a wall near the door. He ripped the chain off and used it to strike the door a few times, while repeatedly screaming, open the door. Jason moved his face close to the doorbell camera as he continued to scream, then appeared to attack the camera with his hands, like he was trying to remove it or to destroy it. By this point, John Doe had called 911 and was driving back to his house. Jason walked to the rear of the house and made entry through a sliding glass door. John Doe's wife and son were hiding in the garage. On a camera mounted near the front door and facing inside, Jason can be seen barging through the house, opening doors, presumably looking for someone. He then appeared to walk up the stairs toward the second floor. Jason can be heard screaming, where the blank is she? John Doe arrived home, parked on the street, and ran into his house carrying a shovel. He confronted Jason, yelling, get the blank out of my house. The men engaged in a physical altercation, which was not captured on camera. Both of the men sustained head injuries. Jason continued to express concern that somebody was in danger inside the house. John Doe assured him that everything was fine and asked him if he was in the military. Jason said yes. John Doe asked him to step outside, and Jason complied. The police arrived at 9:18 a.m. and encountered Jason outside near the front door of the house. Jason Nichols was arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon, not firearm, likely to produce great bodily harm, threatening a crime with the intent to terrorize, burglary in the first degree, and vandalism. While Jason was in custody, a witness came forward and told the police about an encounter between Jason and their 5-year-old child. This happened on April 5, 2 days before the Burbank Court incident. This is not John Doe's child, rather a different 5-year-old child. Based on the witness's statement, Jason was additionally charged with annoying or molesting a child under the age of 18. The court set Jason's bail at $250,000. At the time I'm making this video, Jason Nichols remains in jail. It appears as though he has become much more courteous during his time in custody. During one hearing, he told members of the media in the courtroom, thank you all for being here. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. One can make a good argument that Jason Nichols was experiencing some type of mental health episode, although there is no way to know for certain at this point. Jason identified himself as the fictional character Harry Dresden while he was at the front door of the house on Burbank Court. Perhaps he truly believed he was this character, like this was a delusion. Harry Dresden is the protagonist of the urban fantasy book series, The Dresden Files, written by Jim Butcher. Harry is a Chicago-based professional wizard and private investigator who handles cases like homicides, missing persons, and curses. He is defiant, stubborn, and sarcastic. Harry maintains a personal code that involves protecting innocent people, especially victims who are vulnerable. The adventures Harry experiences involve demons, werewolves, vampires, and other supernatural entities. His tactics to contend with these adversaries and to solve cases include magic and detective work. In addition to the books, there was a 1-season television show based on The Dresden Files, which aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2007. Item number 2. There are several parallels between the character Harry Dresden and the alleged burglar, Jason Nichols. In the novels, Harry viewed himself as both an investigator and a protector. Jason was interested in searching the house on Burbank Court and wanted to know the location of a daughter. Presumably, Jason wanted to protect this daughter. This is who he was searching for. Harry lived in a world where supernatural phenomena were common. Jason acted as if he was detached from reality as well, somehow believing that he had the authority to break into a house that was not his. The adoption of the Harry Dresden identity could also indicate that Jason is grandiose and identifies with heroes. He views himself as misunderstood, isolated, and forced to operate outside normal systems. He can't wait for the authorities. He has to take action personally. Only he can save this mysterious and non-existent girl who is in danger. Item number 3. The restraint exercised by John Doe in this case was impressive. Jason had not only made multiple threats, he banged on the door, beat the door with a chain, attacked the doorbell camera, and entered the house. The house was occupied by John Doe's pregnant wife and his child. It wasn't like Jason entered an empty house where he could not hurt anyone. If that was the case, most homeowners would simply wait for the police to arrive. John Doe was focused on getting Jason out of his house. He clearly did not want to harm the alleged burglar. He also kept the line of communication open and asked Jason if he was in the military. John Doe was looking for a way to end the confrontation peacefully. He tried to reason with Jason and tried to connect with Jason. Many people in John Doe's situation would not have been so gracious. If Jason had ended up in a different house, he could have easily found himself in a gunfire-facilitated threat removal scenario. Furthermore, if a homeowner had shot him, the shooting would have been justified. It was almost like Jason was asking to be killed. Item number 4. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. It is reasonable to believe that mental health symptoms, including psychosis, may have played a part in Jason's actions. He believed with a high degree of conviction that the house on Burbank Court contained a girl who was in danger. This house appears to have been selected at random, but to Jason, that address must have had some significance. He believed he was somehow connected to that house, or he made some observation of that house that led him to believe there was danger.
The other charge that Jason received for the alleged incident 2 days earlier may have been tied to the same delusion of protecting children. Jason viewed himself as a force of good who had the job of rescuing victims. He disconnected from reality and adopted the Harry Dresden identity. Consistent with his character, Jason was actively searching all over the place for circumstances that fit the narrative. He was not just reacting to the specific situation he thought was occurring at Burbank Court. Jason may have been a danger to anyone he encountered. It was just a matter of time before he was arrested. It's also worth considering that there may have been no delusion. Jason identified as Harry Dresden to justify what he already wanted to do. He was interested in finding a girl, and he needed some way to explain that desire in a non-criminal way. There are still many unanswered questions in this case. For example, did Jason have a history of mental health symptoms? Why did Jason select the house on Burbank Court? Who exactly was he looking for? Did he even know the identity of the person he was looking for? Why was he cryptic with John Doe? Why didn't Jason simply state precisely why he was there? And if Jason believed someone was in danger, why didn't he notify the authorities? I imagine that Jason's public defender will invoke a mental health argument, but it is likely Jason will be convicted of serious crimes either way. Anyone who just randomly enters a house and searches rooms while making threats needs to be kept separate from society regardless of their mental health struggles. I think the lesson learned in this case is about how hazardous it is when reality and fiction become confused. This can turn ordinarily positive motives, like saving someone, into harmful actions. In this case, there was no victim inside the house who needed to be rescued. The only danger came from the person who believed there was. Those are my thoughts on the case of Jason Nichols. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Oh, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Caitlin Lyon Montgomery. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Caitlin Lyon Montgomery was born on May 22, 1994, and lived in Forest, Virginia. This is 11 miles west of Lynchburg. Sometime around 2018, she had a daughter named Milani. It appears as though the relationship with the father did not work out because Caitlin raised her daughter alone. To make a living, she worked as a restaurant manager. Caitlin was interested in finding a romantic partner, but felt like local prospects were unacceptable. She expanded her search to other areas that were farther away. In January 2022, she became romantically involved with a man named Trenton David Mills Fry, who lived 108 miles to the south in Greensboro, North Carolina. He was born on February 14, 1994, so he was about 3 months older than Caitlin. Initially, Caitlin was very excited about the romance with Trenton. She considered him physically attractive, and he claimed that he owned both a construction company and a security company. In reality, he was unemployed and had poor credit. At some point, Caitlin became pregnant with Trenton's child, but in June 2022, she had a miscarriage. In September 2022, Trenton confessed to her that he was unemployed. This prompted Caitlin to terminate the relationship near the end of that month. She blocked Trenton on social media and was completely done with him. Caitlin moved into a second-story apartment at 1060 Madison View Drive. She lived there with her 4-year-old daughter and a roommate named Jacob Piercy. Caitlin had only known Jacob for 3 weeks when they moved in together. Jacob would later say that he had feelings for Caitlin, but they agreed not to pursue a romantic relationship. They slept in separate bedrooms. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On Friday, October 7, 2022, Caitlin Lyon Montgomery's roommate Jacob Piercy called 911 at about 5 a.m. and indicated that Caitlin was not breathing. When first responders arrived, they found Caitlin unresponsive on the floor of her bedroom. She was transported to Central Lynchburg General Hospital. Here's what Jacob said to the police. On the night before, he and Caitlin watched TV. Around midnight, Jacob heard a noise on the balcony, which again was on the second floor. He looked out through the sliding glass door, but did not see anything. Later, Jacob and Caitlin went to bed in separate bedrooms. Caitlin's daughter was in the same bedroom as Caitlin. At about 5 a.m., Caitlin's daughter woke Jacob up and said there was something wrong with her mother. When Jacob investigated, he found Caitlin unresponsive on her bed. The lights in Caitlin's room were on, and the covers were off. This is when Jacob called 911. Based on the information they had at the time, the police suspected that Caitlin overdosed on some type of substance. She died the next day, Saturday, October 8, 2022. An autopsy revealed that she had been strangled. Investigators searched her apartment and found a cell phone cord wrapped up in a blanket on Caitlin's bed. It matched the marks found on her neck. Unfortunately, due to the police jumping to the overdose conclusion, they had given Caitlin's family members permission to clean the apartment. No DNA was recovered. The police noticed there was no sign of forced entry into the apartment. However, the lock on the sliding glass door had been non-operational prior to the incident. As the only other adult in the apartment when Caitlin was killed, Jacob was a potential suspect. Eventually, the police came to believe that Jacob was not involved, and they focused their attention on Trenton Fry. They learned about the tumultuous relationship that he had with Caitlin and how Caitlin ended the romance between them just a week and a half before her death. Caitlin and Trenton had communicated via text message on the night of Thursday, October 6, and during the early morning hours of Friday, October 7. Trenton appeared to be angry at Caitlin. The police contacted Trenton. He said that he was in North Carolina on Thursday night. Furthermore, he did not even know where Caitlin was living at the time. She moved after they separated. The police obtained cell phone data from Trenton's phone. Starting on Tuesday, October 4, 2022, his phone was not far from Caitlin's apartment in Virginia. The phone did not return to North Carolina until Friday, October 7. Trenton's employer told the police that Trenton did not work on Thursday or Friday. I guess Trenton had found a job by this time. The police confronted Trenton in North Carolina. He had checked himself into a mental hospital in Greensboro. Trenton denied being involved in Caitlin's death. When the police confronted him with evidence indicating he was near Caitlin's apartment, he suddenly claimed that he must have had a memory problem. Trenton said that he would sometimes black out for days at a time. On October 20, 2022, Trenton was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. On January 3, 2023, he received an upgrade for first-degree murder. His trial started in late March 2025. Trenton Fry testified in his own defense. He admitted that he was in the area of Caitlin's apartment around the time that she died. He also admitted that he searched for the floor plan of her apartment a few days before she died. Trenton explained that he was not in Virginia for a nefarious purpose. Rather, he was simply looking for a job and a place to live in Lynchburg. He was hoping that, eventually, Caitlin would change her mind about their romance and they could reconcile. He just needed to get his life together. During this time, Trenton was sleeping in his vehicle, but sometimes he would walk around the area because he had trouble sleeping. His insomnia was caused by mental health issues, distress, and heartbreak. In April 2025, after a 5-day trial, Trenton Fry was convicted of first-degree murder. In August of that year, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Trenton Fry maintains his innocence, although he does not appear to have too many supporters. His attorney argued there is no credible evidence that Trenton entered Caitlin's apartment on the night of her death. He suggested that Caitlin's roommate Jacob was a more likely suspect. The state of Virginia, of course, disagrees. They argued that the evidence against Trenton was overwhelming. This brings me to the question, is Trenton Fry guilty of first-degree murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea he is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Trenton started his romantic relationship with Caitlin by lying to her about his income. He said he had an income, and he didn't. He falsely claimed that he owned 2 businesses. When Caitlin found out that Trenton was not a desirable romantic partner, she quickly dumped him. She also moved in with another man, Jacob. The relationship with Jacob was not romantic, but Trenton probably suspected it was, which made him jealous. In messages that Trenton exchanged with Caitlin not long before her death, he said that he knew she was living with Jacob, and he was unhappy about it. Trenton also made several worrisome statements to Caitlin. For example, he called her a piece of blank, told her karma is a blank, said, "I'm tearing myself apart," accused her of doing shady blank and toxic BS, said, "My mental issues are getting out of control," and said, "hurting like I never have before." Trenton searched for the floor plan of Caitlin's apartment, and he searched the terms, "Can you search someone's Snapchat by email?" and "How to find out if someone is on a dating app." Starting 3 days before Caitlin was strangled, Trenton's phone was in the area of her apartment. People at her apartment complex noticed a mysterious man sitting on a picnic table outside her building on Thursday, October 6, 2022. He was so creepy, someone even took a photograph of him. This man was later identified as Trenton Fry. About 2 hours later, Trenton was captured at a convenience store not far from Caitlin's apartment. By this time, he had changed into all black clothing. At 10:19 p.m., his phone was within a tenth of a mile of Caitlin's apartment. At 4:15 a.m., now on Friday, October 7, Trenton's phone connected via Bluetooth to Caitlin's iPad. This was an automatic connection, which would occur when the devices became close enough to each other. 3 minutes before Caitlin's roommate Jacob found her unresponsive, Trenton entered North Carolina into his GPS, but he did not immediately leave the area. After first responders arrived at the scene, cell phone data placed Trenton hiding in bushes not far from Caitlin's apartment. His phone did not connect to any towers in North Carolina until 9:36 a.m. In the following days, Trenton searched for breaking news, warrants for his arrest, and background checks. When confronted by the police, he lied and said he did not know where Caitlin's apartment was located. He also claimed that he had memory loss, which was incredibly convenient given his situation. What are the chances that he would develop a condition where he failed to remember events that were extremely incriminating? Now moving to the exculpatory factors. The police believe the murder weapon was a cell phone charging cord, but there was no DNA or other evidence on that cord connecting it to Trenton. The roommate Jacob was an obvious alternative potential suspect for the defense to focus on. Caitlin had only known Jacob for 3 weeks before they moved in together. Jacob admitted that he had feelings for Caitlin, but said they agreed not to start a relationship. The defense suggested that Jacob could have killed Caitlin in a consensual sex act involving asphyxiation. Maybe it was just an accident, and no one actually murdered Caitlin. Prior to calling 911, Jacob called his aunt. It would have been very difficult for Trenton to access Caitlin's apartment, kill Caitlin, and leave without being detected. First, there was the problem of accessing the balcony. Caitlin's apartment was Unit 202. It was on the 2nd floor. The police suggested that Trenton climbed on a bench that was on the 1st floor patio below Caitlin's balcony. Even if that is true, it would have been difficult to get up there. After he was on the balcony, Trenton had to make entry through the sliding glass door. This wasn't difficult because the lock was non-operational. But how did he know that? Now inside the apartment, Trenton had to worry about waking up Jacob, Caitlin, Caitlin's daughter, and Caitlin's 3 noisy dogs. The same dogs that barked and were running around furiously when first responders arrived. The state would have people believe that Trenton moved silently enough not to wake up anyone in the apartment. He strangled Caitlin in her bedroom with her daughter and her dogs right there in the same room without making any noise. After completing his mission, he exited the apartment. Again, he somehow managed to be completely silent. A lot of circumstances had to fall in Trenton's favor for him to carry out the homicide undetected. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Trenton Fry is guilty of first-degree murder? Yes. In my opinion, he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The state's case is not great because the presence of Jacob in the apartment is a confounding factor. However, there's enough evidence against Trenton to eliminate any reasonable doubt. If Trenton is not guilty in reality, then he is extremely unlucky. He just happened to be outside of Caitlin's apartment in full stalker mode when she was strangled. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Caitlin Lyon Montgomery believed that Trenton Fry was an acceptable romantic partner because he lied to her about his financial status. She became aggravated because during their time together, she had to pay for everything. Trenton never seemed to have any money. When Caitlin learned that he was broke, she promptly ended the relationship. Her rejection was not based solely on his financial situation. She was also upset that he lied. After the separation, Trenton transformed into a rejected stalker. This type of stalker cannot accept the end of a romantic relationship and repeatedly communicates this sentiment to the victim. He simultaneously tries to reconcile and get revenge, not realizing those two behaviors are incompatible. When Trenton failed to win Caitlin back, he transformed from a rejected stalker into a predatory stalker. This is the most dangerous type and involves a man preparing for an attack using various methods, including covert surveillance. Trenton may have seemed overly emotional and disorganized, but he carefully developed a homicidal plan. He was able to overcome many obstacles. For instance, Trenton somehow learned that the lock to the sliding glass door was non-operational, and the dogs did not bark at him because they were accustomed to him from when he lived with Caitlin. Trenton managed to strangle Caitlin quickly and silently. If he did not have his cell phone with him during the murder, he could have escaped responsibility. The police would have continued to suspect Jacob, who was innocent. One frightening element about this case is how easily an innocent man could have been accused of murder. If not for the digital evidence created by Trenton's incompetence as a criminal, would the police have believed that a silent intruder entered the apartment at night and strangled Caitlin, leaving no sign of his presence whatsoever? Probably not. Those are my thoughts on the case of Caitlin Lyon Montgomery. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Ashley Oakland and Kristen Ramsey. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Ashley Marie Oakland was born on December 30, 1983 in Ames, Iowa. She was raised in the town of Kelly, 30 miles north of Des Moines. In 2002, she graduated from Ballard High School. Ashley attended Iowa State University and graduated in 2006 with a degree in exercise science. Her dream was to become a physical therapist. In 2007, Ashley changed directions with her career and became a real estate agent. She worked for a couple of different real estate brokers before taking a job at Iowa Realty. Ashley lived in West Des Moines, Iowa with her boyfriend and her dog. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On April 8, 2011, at 2:09 p.m., a person identified in court documents only as the witness called 911 and reported finding 27-year-old Ashley Oakland unresponsive. Ashley was in a model townhouse at 558 Stone Creek Court in West Des Moines, Iowa. This was in a 70-unit neighborhood known as the Stone Creek Villas. Here's what the police found during the course of their investigation. Ashley had been shot twice at close range, once in the chest and once in the face. 2 380 ACP cases were found in the townhouse. She was transported to Iowa Methodist Medical Center in Des Moines, where she later died. There was no furniture in the townhouse, and all the doors and windows were locked. Ashley was scheduled to work in the model townhouse from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. on that day. This townhouse was owned by a developer named Rotland Homes. This company had a contract with Iowa Realty, where Ashley was an agent. While Ashley was working that day, her mother and the witness were in a townhouse that shared a wall with the model townhouse. The witness was described as a 53-year-old woman and a neighbor. Shortly after 2 p.m., the witness heard loud noises coming from the model townhouse, describing them as thuds, occurring 3 to 4 seconds apart. The witness looked outside from a second-floor window and saw a Rotland Homes sales manager named Kristen Ramsey pacing by her vehicle and talking on her cell phone. Kristen entered her vehicle, backed up quickly in an erratic manner, and drove away from the area. Concerned that there was some sort of problem, the witness entered the model townhouse and found Ashley unresponsive on the floor. This is when she called 911. Again, the call was placed at 2:09 p.m. Not long after the witness placed this call, Kristen Ramsey returned to the area of the townhouse. The police learned that on that day, at 1:56 p.m., 13 minutes before the 911 call was placed, Ashley sent an email from her computer to a friend about social plans for that night. The nature of this email led investigators to believe that Ashley was alive at this time, because the email usage rate among dead people is historically low. The police also believe that Ashley was physically inside the model townhouse and not in distress. As I mentioned, the witness in the townhouse next to the model townhouse, where Ashley was working, said that Kristen was outside on her cell phone right after the loud noises. The police learned that Kristen had used her phone to call another Rotland Homes employee within 2 minutes of the loud noises. On May 3, 2011, less than a month after the shooting, the police searched the home of Kristen Ramsey in Woodward, Iowa. They found multiple firearms, illegal substances, and posters threatening violence. She was not placed under arrest and continued with her life, taking a job with a title and escrow company. The case of Ashley's murder went cold, despite the police following up on hundreds of leads. Years later, the police renewed the investigation into the homicide. On March 17, 2026, they searched the home of Kristen Ramsey for a second time and found multiple firearms, illegal substances, and posters threatening violence. These are the same items they found almost 15 years earlier. On the same day, 53-year-old Kristen Ramsey was arrested and charged with murder in the first degree. Presumably, the state's theory of the crime is that Kristen shot and killed Ashley in the model townhouse, left the area to dispose of the murder weapon, then returned to the scene knowing that she had been spotted, and it would look suspicious if she never came back. She did not want to be accused of fleeing the scene. At the time I'm making this video, Kristen Ramsey is being held on a $2 million cash bond. At a hearing on April 10, 2026, her attorneys made an argument for a reduction in bond, which is being considered by the judge. Kristen's trial is scheduled to begin in January 2027. Now moving to my analysis. Kristen Ramsey maintains her innocence, and she has a significant number of supporters. Her defense attorney said they had 47 letters of support for the bond review hearing. Witnesses testified that Kristen was sweet, caring, compassionate, and never demonstrated any behavioral problems. There was nothing about her personality that would lead someone to believe she was capable of murder. The state of Iowa, of course, disagrees. Without sharing the evidence they supposedly have, they have argued that Kristen must be guilty. At this point, they would like the public to simply take their word for it. This brings me to the question, is Kristen Ramsey guilty of murder in the first degree? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. On April 8, 2011, a witness who was in a townhouse adjacent to the model townhouse where Ashley Oakland was working heard 2 loud noises. Presumably, these were the gunshots that killed Ashley. There was no furniture in the model townhouse, making it difficult to imagine what else could have produced those sounds. When the witness looked outside, she saw Kristen Ramsey pacing while talking on her cell phone. Kristen then drove away erratically. The police learned that Kristen had called a colleague within 2 minutes of the loud noises, but she did not call 911. Again, it was the witness who called 911 at 2:09 p.m. Ashley had sent an email at 1:56 p.m., so her murder must have occurred in that 13-minute window. There is no evidence that anyone other than Kristen was in the model townhouse between 1:56 p.m. and 2:09 p.m. Over the years, the police interviewed Kristen several times. She did not dispute that she was seen outside the model townhouse where Ashley was shot and killed. Kristen offered conflicting versions of her whereabouts on April 8, 2011, the day of the shooting, and her statements conflicted with other witness statements. At the bond review hearing on April 10, 2026, the state asked people who were testifying if they would be surprised upon finding out that methamphetamine and marijuana were found in Kristen's home. They never explicitly accused Kristen of possessing those drugs, but they certainly implied it. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. Kristen Ramsey has no criminal record and has maintained a great reputation in her community. She had no obvious motive to kill Ashley Oakland. No physical evidence ties Kristen to the murder, no DNA, no gunshot residue, no murder weapon, no video, no fingerprints, no digital evidence, nothing at all. According to the defense, the witness had poor eyesight and estimated the time of the gunshots based on a broken clock. Kristen admitted that she was at the model townhome, but denied that her leaving the scene constituted an attempt to flee. She stated that she went to get help from a colleague. It's worth noting that the state asserted that Kristen's claim about the colleague was not accurate. They did not offer any further information about that. If Kristen shot Ashley to death, why would she remain outside the model townhouse afterward, talking on a cell phone? As far as the conflicting statements offered by Kristen, the defense argued that the original police report was vague and poorly phrased. Discrepancies between the original interviews and those that took place later are reasonable, given the many years that have elapsed since Ashley's death. When considering all the evidence currently available in this case, do I believe that Kristen Ramsey is guilty of murder in the first degree? In my opinion, no. She is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. There is a plausible way to explain her behavior that does not involve homicide. Kristen stumbled upon the scene after the shooting and saw that Ashley was mortally wounded. In a state of panic, she tried to get help from a colleague instead of calling 911. The state of Iowa is acting as if they have more evidence of Kristen's guilt, but they have not presented it. The defense is suggesting that the state does not have any more evidence than they did 15 years ago. There's essentially no evidence of Kristen's guilt. In my opinion, there is no way to know what happened in this case based on the available information. Many questions are still unanswered. Just a few examples. Did Kristen ever own a pistol chambered in .380 ACP? This cartridge is almost exclusively used in pistols, so it stands to reason the murder weapon is a pistol and not a rifle. Did the police talk to the colleague who Kristen called within 2 minutes of the loud noises in the model townhouse? What did Kristen tell this colleague? Did she say anything about shooting someone to death? When Kristen returned to the area of the model townhouse, was she wearing the same clothing? Was there blood spatter anywhere on her? The defense stated that the police never checked for gunshot residue. Why not? It seems like that should have been a priority. Is there any evidence of a disagreement between Kristen and Ashley? Did Kristen have a reason to kill her? The police claim that Kristen offered multiple versions of her story. What exactly were those inconsistencies? The state of Iowa can delay for now, but eventually they will be forced to show their hand. I've seen many cases where prosecutors bragged about a mountain of evidence against the defendant, but when the time came for the trial, they didn't have any more evidence than they did initially. If the state is misrepresenting their position and they don't have anything else, this will be a quick, not guilty verdict. If they do have a smoking gun, they're doing a great job of keeping it concealed from the public. Now moving to my final thoughts. The lesson learned in this case is don't talk to the police. The state of Iowa is light on evidence against Kristen, but they do have the discrepancies in the statements that she made, even if they turn out to be relatively minor. If she had never talked to the police, those discrepancies would not exist, and they could not be used against her. Often what happens with suspects is that they panic and believe that they can convince the police of their innocence. They believe that talking is the key to remaining free. In the case of Kristen Ramsey, she may have the rest of her life in prison to think about the unwise nature of that belief. Those are my thoughts on the case of Ashley Oakland and Kristen Ramsey. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Eliza Sherman. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Eliza Zinn Sherman was born on September 6, 1959, and lived in Beechwood, Ohio. This small town, which is just east of Cleveland, is home to a large Jewish community. 90% of the town's population identifies as Jewish. Eliza worked as a fertility nurse at a Cleveland clinic. She was married to a man named Sanford Sherman, and they had 4 children together. The marriage was tumultuous. The police were called to their house 22 times for reports of domestic disturbances. In 2011, Eliza filed for divorce. She ended up with an attorney named Gregory Moore, who worked for a practice called the Stafford Law Company. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. In December 2012, the judge assigned to Eliza's divorce case set the trial to begin on Monday, March 25, 2013. On Sunday, March 24, 2013, one day before the trial, Gregory Moore contacted Eliza to set up a meeting at the Stafford Law Office. The office was located at 55 Erie View Plaza in downtown Cleveland. At 5:24 p.m., 53-year-old Eliza Sherman was found mortally wounded in front of the Erie View Plaza near the intersection of East 12th Street and Hamilton Avenue. She was transported to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 6:14 p.m. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. As Eliza Sherman was waiting to meet her attorney, Gregory Moore, a mysterious assailant stabbed her 11 times. A person presumed to be the killer was captured on video surveillance.